Hea Tartuffi sõber, hea filmisõber, meil on hea meel, et oled meiega. Toimub vestlus filmitegijaga. Mina olen Liisi Rohumäe PÖFFi programmitiimist ja filmiks on Iraani haarav selline pooleldi dokumentaaldraama, isegi võiks öelda Yalda andestuse öö. Ja meil on ühendus filmi stsenaristi ja režissööriga. Welcome Massoud Bakhshi.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So we're here to talk about Yalda, which is, well, brimming with tension, I would say. And it's basically shows an episode of a reality show where a person's life is decided. So it's literally a life and death situation. What really struck me is that those types of shows exist. So could you talk a little bit about that? How do these shows actually look like and how you stumbled upon it? Because I know you're not a big TV watcher, so how did the idea come about to make this film?
Well, actually, the show is just look like what you see in the film. But the thing is that, of course, we created our original show because we didn't want to imitate the existing show. And another thing is that it was one of the biggest hit of the Iranian TV, but right after my film, they stopped to produce the show.
Wow. Wow, okay. If you could give a bit of background to our viewers, because it's a very rare case that in Iran there is a law where you can forgive. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, that's one of the most complex and at the same time interesting thing about the retaliation law, in which, of course, in some specific cases like the passion crimes and the familiar murders or the accidental killings, the victim's family can forgive the criminal. And of course there are more complex details about it, like that the fact that the judge himself that signs the verdict, the execution verdict, he must go to the victim's family at the first place and ask for their forgiveness. So it's very complex. But the thing is that I don't want to reduce the subject of the film only to these complications of the law. And it's basically the story of two women and also more women, because we see at least 8 female characters in the film. And it's kind of the general theme of the film. It's the forgiveness and also the revenge. And but there are more layers in the film that I want the spectators to discover himself.
I agree with you. There are, of course, a lot of layers in the film, and I'm very interested in the research because you did quite a lot of research and to bring these stories, and especially those female stories, to the forefront. And you actually had access to real female inmates in a maternity ward. So please talk a little bit about that, because if I'm not mistaken, in Iran, you're not actually, as a man, allowed to go in there to talk to them directly.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's one thing. The other thing is that usually the maternity ward for the prisoner women is very specific, because usually they have, they are criminals and they are not allowed to go to the ordinary maternity hospitals, for doing the labor. But the thing is that the first ideas of this subject came to me when I saw some documentaries about the subject, and I was really interested in finding more and discovering more about these women. Who are these women, and why they are committing such murders? While they, doing the researches, I discovered that they at the first place, they themselves, they are victims of these, cases. And later I discovered that there are so many common things in each cases. Usually they are coming from the lower class families. Usually they don't have a very good education. And usually the financial problems, are involved in these cases. And that's why one of the basic I can say topics of the film is this gap between the two classes. And in the accident scene with the motorcycle, you can see that this rage and this conflict that exists in the heart of the society. And I think it's something also universal, because we are living in a world that injustice and inequality is a kind of general topic.
I do want to come back to the media aspect of it all, but before we do, I just want to ask: has the film has it been released in Iran? Do you think it will be? What's the situation with that?
The film, it's released from 45 days ago. It's still in the cinemas. Of course, we decided to release in the film, not in the commercial cinemas. We decided to release the film in the art house group of cinemas, which is a kind of limited number of the rooms. But we have this advantage to keep the film, something like 3 or 4 months on the screen. So gradually the film starts to find its audience. And the other thing that we decided to do from some 10 days ago, we decided to join a kind of NGO who helps the young criminals that who did some kind of accidental killings, just like in the film. And after years in the prison, they are condemned to death, but they are looking desperately for some money to pay the victim's family, the blood money, and eventually to get the forgiveness and to be released. So we decided to give all the revenues of the Iranian release to liberate one or hopefully two of these accidental criminals.
Wow, that's great. Fingers crossed that you'll be able to do that. Has there been reviews already as well? What has been the reception from the audience, from the critics in Iran?
Well, the critics, because we shown the film in the National Film Festival here, and at the time the critics were more or less negative, because they said that this is a kind of imitation of an existing show. It's not a film for cinema. They didn't get the film. They didn't like the film. And basically it was mainly because the people, especially, intellectuals, they pretend that they don't like the TV programs. So, but after the Sundance Prize and, the welcoming of the film in the international scene, they started gradually to look differently to the film.
Yeah, I mean, there are, of course, like local cultural aspects to it, but it's much more universal than that. And I think especially with reality shows, and we've gone over the limit like a long time ago. So it's looking in the mirror, like not just, I think, in Iran, but in other countries as well, because the way that the role that media plays, and it's very all-consuming.
Exactly. This is one of the basic themes of the film, looking to the medias and the influence and the impact of the medias, on the individuals and on the societies, which is as you said, something very, very general in our world. Today we are talking about that we are captured somehow by the media. We are chosen before, we don't choose what we see or what we hear, but we are chosen to see these kind of programs. And basically, television, it's a kind of huge factory of making these kitsch programs, and this is also in the heart of the film.
Yes. Well, thank you, Massoud. This concludes the first part of our interview. We will continue in just a moment. Aitäh, et olite meiega ja näeme jälle. Okay, Massoud, if we can talk a little bit about the editing in the film, because it truly crackles with tension, and I was glued to the screen like the whole time because you want to know what happens. You're hoping Mona is going to forgive, but could you just talk about setting that up, because there's so much tension in the film.
Well, yeah, the thing is that the several first drafts of the script were written in a kind of classical way. And we had flashbacks, we had, many events of the past. And when I decided to put the whole story in the frame of this TV reality show, it became a kind of chamber drama, and a kind of challenging decision for me as a director, to find the proper mise en scène for the film. And basically, I didn't want the film to be a kind of boring, long takes, TV program-like stuff. And I wanted to be more, as you said, full of tension, as it is in the reality, because it's the life and death of someone at stake. So that's why you see that the suspense, it's in the heart of the film. But this is a kind of real suspense. This is a kind of suspense that comes from the reality, and it's not something fabricated. And I'm really happy about what you said. Even here, that some people or some critics, they didn't like the film. They mentioned that it's a film that you watch it, from the beginning till the end, because it's very full of tension and it's very suspenseful.
I do want to talk about the ending, because I think for maybe a context is very important here, because for a regular viewer, it seems like a happy ending because Mariam is forgiven. But could you talk about why it's actually not a happy ending?
Well, the thing is that the film, from the beginning, I didn't want to have a kind of ending for the film. I think the modern language of the filmmaking, it's very, very close to the reality of the life that we are living. And the life itself is always continuing, it's not... I like a kind of cinema that at the end of the film, you just exit the room with many, many questions still. And starting to ask questions is what I'm looking for, after watching the film. And I think these kind of stories with this kind of ending, it's at least invites the audience to do, to read and to see and to do the research and to find, answers for the questions. And that's why the ending of the film, we see that obviously, there is a kind of conclusion for this, all these tensions. It seems that the question is resolved, the characters are revealed. But if you look at it, truly, you see that there is another bigger tension that starts at the end of the film.
Yeah, because the main character kind of, yes, she gets her life back, she's pardoned, but by not recognizing her son, that actually leads to problems for her in the future as well. So it's, I agree with you. It makes you think and asks a lot of questions. Is there anything you would like to add yourself, Massoud, before we go?
No, I think I'm happy that the film is selected there. I would be more happy if the audience really go out of the room with lots of questions, and I will be more happy if they try to find the answers for these kind of questions.
Yes, well, let's hope that they do. Thank you so much for the film and thank you for joining us.
Have a good festival.
Aitäh, et olite meiega.